Hey, this is Eric from Catching Light.
Hey, this is Hemp.
Hey, this is Glenn.
Hi, I'm Steve-O.
Hey, this is Drew Hines with Hindsight Imagery.
This is Matt Callahan at Digimatty Photographic Services.
Hey, this is Jason, and welcome to Tales from the Pit. Hello and welcome to Tales from the Pit, the behind-the-lens access for concerts and photography. Today we have a very special guest. He is a Nashville photographer, Allen Clark. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Are you kidding?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is really cool. You have quite a diverse catalog of photography. Can you give us sort of a background of how you got started with photography?
Yeah, actually, so I'm from Nashville, live in Nashville, and my first act as a photographer in Nashville was to not shoot anything from Nashville. I just was like, you know what? I don't want to do country because that's what everybody expects from me. That's what everybody thinks I'm going to do. That's what is, and I just was like, I don't want to, because back then when I was starting out, like in 90, what year was this? This was 97, 96, early stages of 92, like when I was just doing like trying anything and everything to get going. I was like, you know what? Zero. I just like, this is what everybody wants me to do. They want me to shoot, back then it was cheesy. Let's just be honest. Photography in the 90s was cheesy. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're doing weddings, if you're doing artists, if you're doing anything, it was the worst crap you've ever seen. I was like, I just don't want to do Nashville. I don't want to do weddings. And I don't want to do family. I don't want to do anything. So I thought, you know what? I'll do rap. I'll do rock. I'll do, you know what I mean? I was like, I'm just gonna try anything I can to kind of stick a thumb in the eye of what is expected of me. And that's kind of the way I've always been. I've always been that guy.
It's awesome. So you were always from Nashville, or you relocated to Nashville at some point?
I've always been from here, but I've spent so much time traveling. Like I spent, let's see, back then, gosh, man, it was almost like touring. I spent 260 days on the road shooting, and then I've kind of got it down to about 150 now, probably, maybe 120, something like that. So I still travel a lot because I'm, when you kind of work, sorry, I'm moving the camera. When you kind of work a lot for what we do, you kind of have to be a slave to the area that you live in, the area that, what you're working in, or just like, or at least the job, you know what I mean? Like you're just kind of like, whoever's hiring me, that's where I live kind of thing. And that's kind of how I've treated it for years. So,
and you've got a lot of different style of stuff. And when you look at your portfolio, I mean, you have, fashion, you have celebrity, you have music, and then, hopefully we'll talk about in a little bit. You got a lot of interesting stuff in regards to Wiki Leaks as well and stuff like that. What is there like a specific, is there your main style, or did it all kind of start evenly, or did you start in one and sort of work your way into the other? How did you get across all those different categories?
Kind of skated them across, I kind of skated across them a little bit. This came up recently. I just did a series for a company out of Japan called Nobechi Creative, and we developed this thing, at least from my class that I taught back in May, like an online course or whatever. And it was, I just basically called my class Building Your Dream Portfolio. And that's kind of what we talked about. We kind of focused in on the fact that it was a very diverse portfolio, kind of like what you're saying. And honestly, it was just because I love so many different types of photography. And if I didn't feel like, for instance, there was a period where I didn't feel like I was like really good at action. So one of my friends is an NFL shooter, and I just kind of like ponied up with him and shot for about 10 years trying to figure out how to shoot action or the anticipation of movement, because I felt like I needed that in my work for just like commercial stuff, whether it was advertising or just kind of like sports photography or ESPN the magazine or whatever. I just didn't feel like I was really good at it. So I kind of trained, shooting action so I could understand anticipation of movement. So it almost like whatever it was that I was trying to figure out, it was always going to serve me. It was always going to serve what I wanted to put in my portfolio. And, you know, at first it was even like, if you look at my portfolio now and you look at it back then, it was even crazier, more diverse back then. So I've kind of like honed it down to just like right now, it's just down to like advertising and music. Yeah, and probably like a little bit of abstract, probably, which goes along with either one of those. So it's just like, you know, one for me, one for you, and one for like, you know, the future is kind of how I look at it.
Nice. What I believe you are a Nikon user as well. What's your setup?
I am. I've been a Nikon user for, I don't know, pretty much the whole, like the length of my career, 27, 28 years, only because they held on to their bayonet. This is crazy. We're going to go into geek talk right now. They held on to their bayonet. They held on to their bayonet longer than just about anybody. They held on to the same bayonet hookup more and longer than Canon, more and longer than, gosh, you know, you can go into Fuji, you can go into Pentax, you can go into just about anybody. They just held on to it longer, and I had tons of lenses laying around, and that was the main reason, because there was some lenses I just absolutely loved and couldn't get rid of, like the 85-1.8 or, gosh, there was a 35-70 macro lens that I held on to forever and just sold it like 6 months ago. Like I held on to it for 22 years or something stupid. And it was just because like I used them all the time. You know, I used it for some sort of purpose. It always had something, like every lens, every like equipment purchase that I've ever made has always been purpose driven. If it's useless, or like people constantly ask me, what's your thing? What's your stock thing? I'm like 24-72-8. You're going to shoot 75% of what you do on that, and everything else is garbage. I mean, it's going to be 10% here, 8% there. It's like, you know, food economics. When I go and eat out at night, I'm going to eat the steak first. And if I fill up, I'm not going to eat the fries. You know what I mean? Like you just kind of do shooting economics. You do shooting economics. What are you shooting the majority of your crap on? And that if you feel like it's something. So that's kind of why I stuck with Nikon, was because their 24-72-8 has been baller for years, like decades and decades.
Now, have you gotten into mirrorless at all at this point?
About to happen. Fuji's kind of courting me right now to try this GFX 50. Is it 50S or something? I think it's the GFX 50S. So they've been courting me to do it, and you know, it's medium format. It's a medium format digital camera. I mean, that's how I started, was on Hasselblad. So that's like a sweet tune to my ear. If I was going to give it up for something, it'd be for the square format, or at least a medium format anyway.
Yeah, it's always been an ongoing kind of, not battle, but kind of a joke between all of us here. I'm a Nikon guy. I'm probably the only Nikon guy in the room. And I just can't see myself shifting over to something else, only because of the cost of it, for one thing. Yeah, and it's what I'm used to, you know, it's what I know. So
yeah,
it's like Ford and Chevy. Sense. You might be a Ford guy, you know, and like Chevy, but I don't want to afford to pay for a Chevy. You know what I'm saying?
I think because also just because I've had to go to different cities and rent cameras a lot of times. Just hand me a fucking camera. Just hand me a camera.
Yeah. Hey, Alan. Let me ask you something here. Now, a lot of times we talk with amongst other photographers, and we've kind of realized that a lot of people generally have a sort of vibe. You could look at a photographer and be like, that's something they're into. You know, going through your website, and I highly suggest anybody that's listening, go to AlanClarkPhotography.com, and you can look at these photos with us, the gallery. It looks like to me that you seem to be a big fan of natural light. A lot of your photographs, you've got some just, you know, natural light coming through windows. There's one in an arcade. There's actually looks like two in an arcade, just window lighting. Is that something you primarily enjoy as natural light, or do you do a lot of studio lighting as well?
I do both. I pride myself on knowing how to, you know, light different levels and stuff like that. Like, it's funny because I trained under Dan Winters, one of my favorite photographers in the whole world, for years. And, you know, he has a thing called layered lighting, or he calls it the wall of light. And I trained under him, and there's a hard way to do something, and there's an easy way to do something. And it's not because of laziness. It's because I think something just speaks to me more. And like, I feel like for some reason, natural light speaks to me now at this stage of my life, the stage of my career, more so than the early days. It's so funny because I would go back like years ago. Timothy White, who used to shoot, you guys, I don't know if you know Tim. He had a studio like almost across from the Jacob Javits Center. So he was like, most of his stuff was movie posters, and he would always bring up the fact that he was best friends with Harrison Ford, which I'd give him a collective eye roll every time he said it, like, oh, douchebag. And so he always had to bring up the fact he was friends with Harrison Ford, but he shot literally all the Raiders of the Lost Ark, movie posters and Air Force One and anything Harrison did. But he had this amazing studio across from Jacob Javits. So anytime you go to Photo East, I would literally end up over there at some point, either at a party or something like that. And everything he ever said was monolight, natural light, maybe some filters, you know what I mean? Back in film was still shooting, but that's kind of how I've gotten to it. It might be a maturity thing. I'm not real sure. I don't know if that's a thing as you do. Just kind of want to remove the complication from your life. But that's kind of the way I've leaned as of late. And it's weird. I've started shooting more street stuff, which is weird. I didn't ever think I was going to do that, which is, completely a slave to that,
Yeah. And you mentioned shooting on the Hasselblad. Just strictly out of curiosity, have you ever heard of Carl Taylor by any chance?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so he's one of my longtime idols, man, and it's because he distinctly does a lot of modeling stuff with the Hasselblad, but I love watching his commercial photography videos. Wish I could set stuff up like he does, but yeah, he's one of my favorites for sure.
I can always remember his logos. He always had really strong logos, if you remember.
Yes.
And just like, because it's such a, like...
It was the logos and his accent.
Yeah, yep, 100%. Sometimes I hate people for their names. I kind of like, should I change my name to Neil Allen Clark? It sounds so much more European.
Hey, I've got a question for you, Alan. Now,
yeah, man.
I've noticed your website, impressive, as we all said. You do video as well. If you had to switch from photography to video, what would you choose over? Or are they equally as fun to do? Very nice videos too, by the way.
Thank you. Honestly, I hand pick them. I hand pick them every time. There's things you can do for money, or there's things you can do for fun. And what I've started doing, I don't know, in the last 5 to 6 years is just like the artists. I have to be really inspired by them because, when you're editing and spend that much time in editing, you better like what you're doing because you're going to end up hating who you're working with if you're not careful. And, it's the closest, I'll say this, to anybody that's contemplating doing this, a photographer or visual artist, it's the closest a visual artist, like for us, will come to songwriting. And if you really want to do this and you really want to write songs and that kind of stuff, then yeah, this might be for you, because that's what's so great about doing music videos is that basically what you're doing is you're offering interpretation. The first thing you have to do when you sit and do this is you have to sit and write out like a treatment. They want a treatment from you. And so it's super creative because you're actually just sitting there telling your vision in this treatment. You've got to give them this little, I don't know, synopsis of what you think the video is going to be about based on the lyrics, based on the song, on the mood. Sometimes it has everything to do with it, and sometimes it has nothing to do with it. I've done videos for Sigur Rós, and it's that one was really like super depressing because it was about death and like this kind of weird shit, and they went for it. So sometimes you just have to kind of give them your dream and your vision, and that's the closest that a visual artist, like a photographer, will come to songwriting. So that's the upside. The downside, you spend, I don't know, like, for us as photographers, you shoot something in one day, you edit for like another day and a half total editing, getting stuff loaded, giving things back to the client. So multiply that times 10 and you've got a video. That's the downside. And that's the amount of time you have to give to it. And you know what? I've got 3 or 4 movie scripts, and people ask me all the time, hey, you need to pitch this movie script. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Based on what I've done already, no thanks. It takes more than it gives. And I don't have the energy for this crap. Somebody's going to have a, hectare volume worth of energy to be able to do music videos, to be able to do film and stuff like that. You have to have 10 times the energy because there's so many people involved, so much money involved.
I can only imagine.
And so music videos are fun. Yeah, music videos are fun in that way because you can that's your version of songwriting, you know, pretty much.
That's cool. Nice.
I can't
interesting
believe you
concept.
mentioned Cigaros, man. I never thought in my wildest dreams I'd hear someone bring that up. Literally, I just showed that band to my sisters who came up this past weekend to visit, and they're like, "What is this? This is pretty sweet." Not many
There's so
people
many
know
great-
about the Cigaros.
Nah, dude, love them. And you know what's weird? So this past year, I tried to buy a ticket to Europe, Northeastern Europe, and they canceled the flight. And I was starting with Icelandic Air out of I think it was out of JFK. I was starting with Icelandic Air. And then it was going to go through Copenhagen and then end up in Estonia. And they canceled everything because of COVID. So now I've got a free ticket to Iceland, and I'm thinking about going.
Dude, that's
And I'm
awesome.
kind of pumped.
That's one of
Yeah.
my
I
places.
just-
bucket lists right there.
You know what you can do? You know what you can do if you can't get to Iceland? So just went through this breakup and all the stuff and went, let's see, my ex lives in Estonia, and then I got on a ferry and I took a ferry over to Helsinki, and then I caught a plane to Rovaniemi. I took these amazing photos of the Northern Lights in Rovaniemi. I'll have to show you this stuff. It looks so great. And that was in the winter, and that's the perfect time to do it. And then I went from there, like about a month ago, I went from there to the Nordkapp, which is the northernmost point in Europe, and it's the top of Norway, which is, so the next stop is North Pole.
Yeah.
And I took some of the most amazing pictures of my life up there. I can't explain it. And it was the same thing as Iceland. It was no trees, just these amazing landscapes and fjords and all this kind of stuff. And I spent about a week there. It was one of the best things I've ever done for myself.
Awesome.
How much, so with this COVID stuff, how much impact has that had for you this year?
Well, it's interesting because I've got not dual citizenship, but like kind of like dual workmanship is the best way to explain it. Since my ex and I, we were married, and I have not a work visa, but like a work permit, I guess would be the best way to explain it. In Estonia, I can travel anywhere in Europe. They kind of consider you European. And because of that, it allows you to kind of travel a little bit more than you normally would. Like if you're just strictly an American, right now you've got about 13 choices. You know, Mexico's being one of them, and weird countries like, what's the other one? Belgrade. And like people who really want to suck up to America right now are going to let you into their country. And so that's kind of where it's at. I'm a little bit privileged in the fact that I had kind of had like a dual living ship or something. I wouldn't call it citizenship. So in the last, literally since April, since COVID happened, I've been able to go to Bali, Doha, all of Northeastern Europe. So that's Estonia, Helsinki, Finland, and Norway. And I just went to Mexico. So I don't know, man. Like, is it safer to stay at home? Is it safer to get on a plane where they clean everything and everyone's wearing masks, and like it's almost like obsessive compulsive behavior on these airplanes? They're cleaning everything, and then they give you something and you clean it again. It's like, I think it actually might be safer to travel. You know what I mean? It's kind of weird. And
Bali, I passed on a trip out there a couple years ago. My wife went, and I kicked myself in the butt for not going. I hear that's quite the place to visit. Correct me if I'm wrong.
no, you're not. And I hope you like humidity. That's the only thing.
That's the other thing. Yeah.
It's like the worst humidity I've ever experienced, probably. And I'm from the South. And we invented it. We might have invented it. And it's like, it was the worst shit I've ever experienced. It was like 85 and 85 humidity. It was really bad.
That would have killed me.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Yeah. It was super bad. I was like, that was the only thing that kind of kept me from enjoying it a little bit more. But it was so beautiful. Like one of our last 3 to 4 days, I spent the time at the bottom of a volcano, at the base of a volcano. That's basically where we had our resort, and it was us and one other couple, because there was nobody doing anything. It was like 2 people, and we had the whole place to ourselves. It was kind of crazy.
That's awesome. What other countries have you visited?
The picture from that, I'll have to post that. I'll send that to you guys so you can post that. It's like insane, the picture from that.
That's awesome.
What were you about
That'd
to
be
say?
great.
Sorry.
Now, what other countries have you traveled that you absolutely would go back to,
Norway.
or want to
100%,
go,
like,
or want to go to, I should say?
Norway, 100%. And then this whole trip to Iceland, I kind of want to try to do since they owe me that. At least, you know, I'm supposed to. I think I'm supposed to book it before December 29th. That doesn't mean you have to go on it before December 29th.
Yeah.
I think I want to at least book it though, and just try that because I've always wanted to do it.
Yeah, a few of my friends have been there. They say it's awesome.
Can we talk about how the Wiki Leaks thing kind of came along? Is that something that just fell into your lap, or is that
Fell
something
into my
that,
lap is the perfect way to describe it.
I'll pull up the picture while you're talking.
Sure. I just spent this past week with my friend Darren. He owns a cigar brand called Principal Cigars. He travels the world. He's like a cigar smoking champion, which we can talk about that later. It's really weird. Yeah, that's okay. So that's Julian and Ciggy. Ciggy's from Iceland. The guy on the left is from Iceland, and he ended up turning on Julian and handing over information to the FBI about Julian. I don't know what he handed over to him, but he and I guess we're kind of still friends. I'm kind of friends with Ciggy, but he turned over information to the FBI about Julian. I don't know what he could have given him that would have been valuable. It's in the Rolling Stone article. You can read that right there. There's also a picture of me in the same spot. You could literally just load in Allen Clark and Julian, and this is weird. So this is the weird part we're going to hit right here. If you load in Allen Clark, Julian Assange, and Amal Clooney, yep, that one, this picture comes up of the three of us. And it's so crazy that I couldn't even attach myself to either one of those guys.
How long
weird.
ago was this?
So that was 2011. That was 2011. Okay. That was during his extradition hearings, during the kind of the heyday of Wiki Leaks, and Hillary Clinton, through the State Department, brought him down because she thought, like, the reason that they gave WikiLeaks was that he was involved with illicit behavior, and she shut his funding down with Visa and MasterCharge during this time. So I'm going to give you guys the leak first.
Oh, nice.
The reason why
There we go.
Oh, yeah. So because this is going to probably come out before my own podcast. So the reason why Julian took her down with the cable releases and the Democratic, with her having her private email hacked and all that crap. Remember this? Yep. And he released the cables on her, like, just kind of being stupid about her own personal email and all the crap that happened. It was because Julian released those cables because she was in charge of the State Department during the time that he was going through his extradition hearings. And she she forced Visa and MasterCharge to take him off the list, and that way he couldn't get any funding through WikiLeaks. So literally all of his donations, which at the time were probably like $1 million every quarter, they just stopped everything. All his funding came to a complete screeching halt, and he never forgot that. So all that stuff with Brendan Manning, all that crap that he found out about the Democratic National Convention, how she was screwing over Bernie and all that bit, he waited and held that and released it at the right time. And he has nothing to do with Republican or Democrat. He doesn't care about any of that stuff. That was complete revenge fuck. That's what that was.
Jeez.
And that is insane. And most people don't know that. And that's going to break, between you and me. That's going to break between your podcast and my podcast in about 2 weeks, because everybody thinks that he favored Trump or whatever, and that's not the truth at all. He wanted to get her back. And
oh shit!
I ended up getting. I've got. I've probably got. Like 3 of the staff members that are going to come on and talk about it. And and 2 of them have never done any interview anywhere. So this is probably going to blow up, and I hope it does. And the reason why I hope it does is because there's the Julian Assange Defense Fund. Because I include you guys in this. as journalists need to protect is our freedom of speech. And that's what Julian did. Julian did what he did because he believes in open government and open and free speech. And as you can see, he's made enemies of just about everyone in the process. And so that's how far he's willing to go. He lost his life to do what he's doing. He lost in his freedoms, every freedom he's got. When he sent when he sent his girlfriend, Sarah Harrison, from his house to go pick up Snowden in Bangkok and accompany him to Russia, he lost his girlfriend. He lost his future wife, and he's lost literally everything to protect his freedoms as a journalist. And that is what he's willing to do. And that is the ballsiest thing I've ever seen in my life. Now, how he goes about it may not be the best thing to do. Who he hurts in the process may not be great. I'm sure he's jeopardized some people's lives. I know he has. He's talked to me about it, and that's part of it. But it's the freedom of speech. How far are you willing to go to do that? And that's what that whole thing's about.
So walk us through that. How did you get? I mean, you started talking about your connection with
my friend Darren.
Yeah,
my friend Darren, the cigar guy.
So what happened? Did you get a phone call? What was walk us through that.
So my friend Darren has this grandiose, and you guys are completely invited to this. Every year we have a big, it's like a Kentucky Derby type of thing here in Nashville. It's called Iroquois Steeplechase. I think it's on the list. I think it's on the list. It's the 7th race. So there's the Derby, there's this, there's that, and we're down the list about 7. Whoops.
You're falling down.
my phone went. So it's like 7th on the list, and Darren has this massive party, and there's about 500 to 1,000 people that show up to this thing every year. And the next day, so after the after party of the Derby, he has a brunch, and there's usually between 35 and 100 people that attend it. And he hired Sarah, our friend Sarah, to come and do this brunch. She's a chef. She's from England, and she happens to be the woman that bailed him out of jail the very first time. And long story short, her dad was the head of the media school that Julian attended and was his mentor. So she's like, hey, I would love you to do the photos for my website. I hired this guy and I paid him $10K, and he gave me 3 pictures on the splash page.
Oh,
shit. It was so sad. Wow. It was so sad. This happens all the time. You guys know this. Happens all the time. There's always some idiot out there. What is it Barnum said? There's a sucker born every minute. You know what I mean? And so, and she was that sucker, and she felt stupid, and she just said, would you come to England and help me with all the contracts that I have. I have all these contracts, for being a chef. And she was like, I do this, I do that. I was like, yeah, sure, absolutely. I said, just pay my way there. I'm not paying for anything. I'll do all these photos. And I stayed there for probably 9 days. What I didn't know was her level of connectedness. I had no idea. I had zero idea. This is crazy. One of her contracts was the Royal Ascot races. So that's the horse race from My Fair Lady.
Yeah.
And so one of her contracts was the bike ride from London to Brighton. One of her contracts was this. It was called Mitchell Priory, but it was this giant monastery had a moat around it and the whole bit. And she had the contract for that, and she had a contract for almost like a state fair type thing. But in England, they have the royals show up and vote on your horse or your beans or your pie or whatever. So here it's like 4-H. You know what I mean? 4-H, she's here. But over there, the royals show up. Some royal will show up and vote on your crap. and that's kind of how it was. And it was really odd that I went and shot all this kind of stuff. And it was kind of amazing. At the same time, I was exhausted. At the end of the 9-day period that we were doing all this kind of stuff, she was like, you know what? I'm going to go visit my friend Julian in Norfolk if you want to go. I was like, sure, absolutely. And I was staying with her parents in Pimlico, which is where they shot all the Sherlock, the Benedict Cumberbatch version of Sherlock. I was literally around the corner from that.
Hey, everybody that listens to Tales from the Pit. This is Allen Clark. I was just on this last episode, or you're still currently watching the episode. Anyway, listen, I've got a workshop coming up this month, the 26th, 28th, and 30th, and it's called Building Your Dream Portfolio. And that's what we all want to do. We want to put that dream portfolio together, and this is all the steps that it takes to do that type of thing. Also, Chris Buck is going to be one of my guests on the second night, so follow the link below and sign up. Excited to see you guys there.
And I was staying with her parents there, and their apartment looked exactly like Sherlock's apartment. Exactly. Like 100% exactly like his apartment.
When she says, I'm going to go visit my friend Julian, did you know who that was, or was it just some Julian friend?
No idea. Julian friend. Had no idea until she said house arrest. So we're on the way there, and she's like, yeah, my friend Julian's under house arrest. And I'm like, wait, what? Your friend Julian's under house arrest?
Wait, what? That's funny.
And I was like, wait a minute, Julian, house arrest. I said, is your friend Julian Assange? And she said, yeah, I thought you knew this. I thought Darren told you. And I was like, no, Darren didn't tell me. I had no idea. I had zero idea. And she's like, well, that's where we're headed. And I wasn't wearing like Crocs with socks and a Hawaiian shirt, but it felt like it, like I was an American. I definitely was wearing shorts. And I was like, I just sitting in the car. I was like, oh my God, I look horrible. I said, you got to pull over. You have to pull over right now. And so convinced her to pull over off the M6 or whatever highway we were on. And we pulled over to some convenience store, and I like put on some pants or something. And then like 2:00 in the morning, I'm standing in front of Julian Assange at this giant hunting estate in Norfolk, England, talking to him. And that was my introduction to the whole thing. I just literally ass backwards into this whole situation, just like you said.
Right place,
just
right
like
time.
You said. Just absolutely right place at right time. And I had no idea. And so I'm sitting there, and each of us had like a valet, by the way. Have either of you guys ever had a valet before?
Nope.
No.
Yeah, Glenn is mine.
No. No, guys like us end up being the valet.
Yeah,
exactly.
Only on the weekends.
And that was nuts. And I was just sitting there, and she was like, would you like some breakfast? And I'm like, yeah, I would like some breakfast. It was so dumb. This whole thing was so dumb. Like, I don't deserve any of this stuff. Why am I getting it again? I have no idea. And it was so weird because, like, I just, would you like some clotted cream? I'm like, sure, that sounds awesome. No idea what I'm having. You know what I mean? Eggs, toe in the hole. You want a toe in the hole? Like, all this stuff. Like, I have zero idea of what's happening to me at the time.
Oh,
you
man.
know what I mean? Like, just like, it's crazy. And I'm
You
just
must
like,
have been like numb. Like, what is going on here?
I'm saying yes to everything. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm saying yes to everything. I have no idea. It was crazy. So I wake up, and like I'm sitting there, and I'm trying to figure out, like most of us do as photographers, the first thing we're always trying to think of is purpose. We're trying to think of, like, what am I going to do? What's my build? I should probably shoot something. How do I do that? Do I pick it up? Do I offend everybody? What do I, like, the first thing in my mind. And I talked to Sarah, because her job was to just cook for everybody. That's what she did when she gets there. That's what she did literally.
Tell you what, she's got to be a hell of a freaking chef if she's got all these connections.
She was like, oh God, I don't even know the boxer, but like up until a year ago, she was like a chef, like a personal chef for a boxer. Like whoever the current hottest boxer is right now, like she was the chef for him. She just bounced around. She has amazing connections. And that's what she was doing. She was kind of the chef for Wiki Leaks. I've got photos of her making cupcakes for Wiki Leaks with the little Wiki Leaks logo on it. And so there's just crazy stuff. But she's really good. When the traditional English chefs are always about meat and potatoes. Mm-hmm. So as good as they're ever going to be, like I would say probably Gordon Ramsay's kind of broken away from that. But most of them are about, like, you know what? Let's just love what we do. Let's love who we are and love what we do. So they'll like cook the best version of what they do already as English people, which is usually just meat and potatoes. And I like meat and potatoes for a couple of days, but after that, I'm gonna need some seafood. You know what I mean? Because that's how bougie I am. But yeah. I mean, that's kind of where that was. And she kind of like, was the chef for him, and we were kind of in the kitchen, and I was just like, I feel like I need to shoot something for him.
Did she bring you there to shoot some photos?
No, that wasn't the whole intention, but that's what ended up happening.
Cool.
And yeah, I just kind of like, the thing I noticed about his photos, and you guys will notice this too. A lot of times when I do research for shoots and stuff like that, I will just do research and look at what they've already currently have or what's on them or whatever. And I did this for Julian. And these bastards from the Independent and the Observer and all these like different British newspapers or magazines, they would just like put flashes down here underneath him, popping up on his face and make him look absolutely like a monster. And just do all this like really crappy lighting. And I was like, dude, they're trying to villainize him.
Yeah.
And I said, that is not how he needs to be represented. He needs to be represented fairly. And that's kind of the stance that I took. I didn't want him to be positive or negative. I just said, you know what? I would like to represent him fairly. So I said, that's what we should do. We should do like honest portraits, just really like soft, because he's not an ugly dude. He might be now, being in prison and having a beard, looking crazy and being underfed. But at the time, he was still, pretty decent looking guy. And I said, we should represent him well and just see what we can pull out of this, this moment. Because they want to villainize him and make him look like a creepy hacker. They want to make him look like a creepy hacker. And I said, I want to at least make him look like a person. And so I said, that's what we could do. And then we brought him into the kitchen, set him down at this giant table in the kitchen, and that's what I said to him and what I said to her. And I was like, could we do that? Could we make you look human? And he actually said, that'd be nice. That'd be really nice. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who you're shooting as a photographer. I think people just want to be represented well. And the other thing is they just want a friend,
Was he aware of you at all? Did he know who you were or anything like that?
No, just through Sarah. He had no idea. It's funny because, we like to think like Americans are pretty isolationists over here, but you know what? The rest of the world, they kind of know about our politics, but outside of that, they don't really know much, and so they're kind of the same. Everyone's kind of the same. We're more alike than we are different.
Now you mentioned that he just wanted a friend, and I think that's a good thing you touch upon, because a lot of the folks that we've been talking to so far, you really we're starting to see, and hopefully we can show too, more so the human side of all these guests, whether in the spotlight, they're celebrities and famous, but at the end of the day, they're like all of us, they've got families, Yeah.
And that's kind of
that's
like
a good point, Derek. Yeah.
I met his dad. I met some of his friends that had known him for 20 plus years. You know what I mean? So you just kind of have to respect the fact that they're still people. And I think that's what we do and when we villainize people or we objectify them, I think it's easy to write people off. That way you don't have to deal with it anymore. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter who it is. And when you get down to it, it doesn't mean that I agree with everything the guy does. It doesn't mean that I like him and everything that he does, but I could say the same shit about some of my family, some of my friends. And when it gets down to it, you just want to represent them well as a photographer, as a person, as a neutral party. You want to make sure you represent them well and show them a good light, if that's what you want to do. Like there's some photojournalists that I'm sure that just want to represent them as they are. And that's a little different.
Right.
Now you talk about having connections. You obviously have had a lot of connections, like the presidents that you shot. How in the world did you get to that level?
I'm going to pull some of those up while he's talking.
Sure.
I think they were George Bush, I believe. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, the Bushes.
Yep, you're right. Both dad and son. Relationships. I'm going to give you a little secret. Here it is.
That's beautiful, by the way. It's a great photo.
That is an awesome photo.
Thank you. If you'll notice, the flag is, I asked the painter that I commissioned, it's a friend of mine named Elizabeth, and I asked her, I said, I want an Old Glory flag. I want something that looks bloody and just like looks like it's been through a war or three. And you can interpret that however you want, because when he got into his presidency, he inherited a lot of crap. He inherited 9/11. You know what I mean? He inherited a lot of stuff, and you could either look at it from the perspective of he inherited this heap of garbage, that this heap of mess that it was with 9/11, or maybe his dad was the cause of it. However you want to look at this, it doesn't matter, but I wanted to represent it right in the middle. He didn't even recognize it when he sat down in front of it. He just knew it was a flag, and he sat in front of it willingly. And I just kind of respect the fact that he was either strong enough or crazy enough to you know what I mean, just be just like, you know what, I'm just going to sit down in front of this, and I don't care what happens. And that's kind of how he was. I'll tell you this, he was a ball of energy. But back to your question about how I got to it. Everybody, I'm going to tell you guys a little secret. If there's ever a point in your career and you're doing commercial photography and you want to do portraits specifically, or you want to do celebrity photos or something, you have this thing as a photographer, as a content creator, called leverage. And that's what you have. And you may not make a lot of money from it, but you have to make these decisions on a continual basis. I'm going to do this for money, or am I going to do this for leverage? And this is like one of those moments. This is not because I got both on this, but it's really about what can you do? Well, what can you do in the area that you live in? Is this person speaking at this thing? Is there a book signing? Is there something that you can do where you can create leverage for yourself as an image creator? And I think if you think about it and you work hard enough and you, jockey hard enough, you could probably find that leverage for you. If you don't have a celebrity in your book, no one's ever going to hire you to shoot your celebrities. So what are you going to do? That means you're going to have to actually sit there and you're going to have to actually strategize what you can give. And so that's what you got to think about. You got to think about, can I give something to this situation so that I can get out of it a celebrity photo? And the best way to do it is to not try to go for the gusto at the, go for it 100%, but like start with a smaller celebrity and build to the next one and build to the next one and build to the next one. It's stupid for you to kind of think, you know what, I'm just going to just immediately start shooting, Beyonce. And you're not. I'm just going to tell you right now, you're not. Unless you're shooting live stuff like our buddy, you know what I mean, who shoots live. And even then, it's not your lighting. It's a concert. You got 3 songs and you're out of there. And so you have to think, okay, well, how can I get these people or these famous people, these celebrities into a portrait situation where I can make it mine? You're looking at shot number 8 of 9 shots. This photo is shot number 8 of 9 shots.
Kidding.
You took 9
I have
pictures.
9 frames.
Click,
9
click,
frames.
click, click. Thank you very much.
So what does that mean? That means I did a hell of a lot of pre-visualization. I did a hell of a lot of pre-planning and production and stuff like that. Lighting. I did 3 hours of lighting before he ever stepped into this photo or sat into this photo. Wow. And so that's
30
what you gotta
seconds.
do. Yeah, well, it's closer to 47. But you get what I'm saying. You're not going to have a lot of time with these people, so you better show up.
So let me see if I can guess how this went down. Once you got to this point where you knew you were going to get him, he comes in, sits down, goes, "How y'all doing?" And it was click, 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 and he left.
Nope, I got it. It's even better. Ready? He walked into the room. You know that thing they say about like Elvis or whatever? Like when Elvis walked in the room, you could feel it.
Yeah.
It was like a wave. It was a wave of that guy. He walked into the room and he was like, "All right, who's the man?" Just shouted immediately. And I was like, I am, Mr. President, like that. And he goes, "All right, let's get this party started."
Was he the sitting president at the time?
No. This is right after his presidency. So, you know the Will Ferrell imitation?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's exactly like it. It's exactly like it. Except for he's even louder. He's even louder than what you think he'd be. And so he was just like, "All right, who's the man?" It's all this shouting. And so I said, "Mr. President." He comes over and he sits down. I do shot 1, click, 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 8, get to 9, almost get to 9. And as I'm on the 8th shot, which you're looking at, I say, "Tell me when I've done too much." And he and the 8 Secret Service people in the room said, At the same time, it was like they practiced it, like in chorus. They said, "You've done too much."
Wow.
And I was like, and I froze like at that point because I thought I was doing something wrong. And I had my camera like this, and I could feel people approaching me from behind, like Secret Service approaching me from behind. Keep in mind, there's 2 female Secret Service agents in the room with the rest of the 8. And I turn around and I look back, and they're all approaching me, and I thought they were coming after the camera or something. I look back, my camera's not in my hands anymore. I look up, and George W. has it.
Oh, no.
And I'm just like, I didn't know what to say. And I just went, "What are you doing?" That was my answer. I just look up and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he doesn't miss a beat. He looks over me and goes, "Hey, one of you Secret Service guys, get over here and take our picture." And there's 2 women in the room. He called them all Secret Service guys, which I thought was hilarious. And so there's actually a shot, I'll send it to you guys, but there's a shot of the 2 of us together, and I'm in the photo, I'm literally looking like, does that guy know what he's doing? That's like my shot, that look on my face is, does he know what he's doing? He has no idea how to do that, but he did it. Somehow he got it in focus, and he got it right. I couldn't believe it.
How much time did you have to prep before this? When you
Oh, God.
shoot him?
When I knew I was going to shoot him was 6 months prior, so
Oh, my God.
I worked on this for probably 3 months. And so that's the whole thing with this kind of thing. So if you know you're not going to get a lot of time with somebody that's famous, you better show up and be ready, because you know you're going to only have 8 shots to get it in. And that's what you have to be ready for. So your idea has to be complete. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say your idea has to be complete. Your lighting has to be complete. Your set design has to be complete. Everything has to be ready, because they don't care about you.
Now, how'd you
care
get
about where your wishes are?
How'd you get your inspiration for that background?
Honestly, it came from the Josh Brolin movie about him. How he was kind of sitting slumped in a chair, or you saw it on Vice, the movie Vice. He's just kind of this little college boy who ends up being president. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just that whole loose cannon. Like the minute he walked in the room, my first thought was, "Do not give that guy cocaine."
Did I give what?
Don't give that guy cocaine.
Oh, yeah.
Or don't give that guy like a beer. Or don't give that guy vodka shots or tequila shots. That was my first thought. He just has this ball of energy, and you have to kind of just like strap on or get on your surfboard and ride that wave. And that's kind of how he was.
You can see, you definitely, it's just, such a cool story. But you look at how the gleam in his eye and how you have captured him, you just know that he's just itching to bust balls.
Dude, he will mess you up. That's his thing. He's just like, he has just got that energy level. And probably now he's calmed down a little bit because I know he's painting and stuff. But like back then, you know what's so funny? This is funny because I photographed his mother and his father.
I'll pull those up
too. He knew it. Well, he knew it. He knew I did. And that's crazy that he knew I did.
Man.
And so he knew I did. And I had, when they took the photo of the 2 of us, I had my arm around him. Let's see if it's in there. Let's see if it's, yeah, there you go. There's his dad. I think Barb's right there's Barb. That was a flag out of a dealership. You know those giant dealerships that always have those massive flags?
I wouldn't know anything about that.
Yeah.
What kind of security clearance did you have to go through to even get close to these people? I can't even imagine.
Secret Service, I've had about 6 to 7 Secret Service checks.
And I bet you're very selective on how you talk to them. I'm going to shoot the president, so
You have to say photograph the president.
Photograph, exactly.
I had to
right?
literally, on George H.W. Bush, I had to train I had 4 assistants with me that day. I had to, on the drive down, I had to say, photograph the president. We just practiced it over and over and over again.
Right.
So here's Barb, and I think I took maybe 3 or 4 shots with her. She was even less than G-Dub, and he looked at me when we were doing our photo together, when the Secret Service guy took it. He goes, "How many did you get at Mama?" I was like, 3, maybe 4. He goes, that little shoulder shake, that Will Ferrell does so well. And he laughed. He laughed so much. He goes, "I didn't think you'd get many." It was so funny.
Where was the location for this?
There's a place outside of Memphis, Tennessee, that all of them have spoken at for a benefit dinner for like a college, university. And
Gotcha.
so that's where most of this, not all of it, most of it was at, you know. And let me tell you something about Barbara Bush. That woman was terrifying.
Oh, Jesus. All right.
That woman was terrifying. Well, just because you could tell where the power comes from. That she was the power. She was the power for both of those dudes, man. That woman, oh my gosh, it's like that grandmother that you're terrified of. You know what I mean? That's who she was.
Yep.
Absolutely terrified. And she just had all the power. It was like, I didn't feel that from either one of those guys, but I felt that from her. And that just lets you know that she was the one behind, probably the, you know what I mean? The puppet master, it's her.
Tell by those eyes.
Yeah, you can see it. You can see.
She was a fierce woman.
So if you don't mind, I want to go back to WikiLeaks or
Sure.
Julian for a few minutes. So after you met him and stuff like that, how does he just communicate with you regularly, or how did you move forward from that day?
Interesting question. So I spent about a week after we did all her stuff, all her crazy stuff, spent about a week, and then I came home for my birthday, which is on July the 4th. His is July the 3rd. And he asked me before I left, he goes,
Wait a minute. You've shot the president, two presidents, and the first lady, and you're born on the 4th of July.
Yep.
Let me be the first one to drop a shut the fuck up.
Drop it hard. Isn't that crazy?
That's funny.
Wow.
That's
All right, I'm sorry to interrupt. Go.
No, dude, 100%. But yep. And so his birthday was in July the 3rd, actually. So what is it now? It's probably July the 2nd, maybe the 1st. And he looked at me and he goes, it's weird because he got attached to me pretty quickly because I'm with him like I am with you. Like nobody, it doesn't matter who they are. If they're a celebrity, president, anybody, you can tell by my response to George W. when he took my camera. What are you doing? I'm like, that's who I am. I don't care.
What are you
I'm going to
doing?
say, what the fuck? I'll say, what the fuck? I don't care to whoever. And I'll try to add myself.
I bet you don't drop a what the fuck on Barb.
No, I would have died.
I'd love to see that one.
It's
Get a
almost
spanking.
like I feel like a trident would just go right through my eyeball or something. You know what I mean? Just like, so she's crazy powerful. Like I just felt like, you know. So
I'm sorry, Jay. You asked him a question. We keep diverting him.
Oh, it's okay. But so before he left, he got really attached to me, and he just kind of just said, "Hey," like just between the two of us, he goes, "Hey, it was like a 16-year-old kid. He was just like, hey, will you come back and photograph my birthday?" And I was like, sure, why not? And he said, okay. And so WikiLeaks paid for me to come back. And I get these weird like faxes and instructions. Like if you have a helicopter, you need to park on this thing. And so he fully expected Brad and Angeli were 100% supporters of him, as was Oprah. And so he had like helicopter instructions and all this kind of stuff, right? And I get all this stuff and I'm like, oh, Lord, what is happening? Like, what have I signed up for? And so he asked me to come back, and I come back. Let's see, I'd come home, have the birthday party, and people were giving me all these like Julian Assange birthday cards. So I take one of them with me. I come back and I showed it to him. And he was like, he just looked horrible. It was like a cartoon character. It looked like Lurch from, you know what I mean, Addams Family. And I showed it to him, and I was like, this is what Americans think of you. And he was like, oh, that's horrible. He's like, that's kind of what I was telling you guys. Like, beyond all the stuff, there's always the person, you know? And so I go back for his birthday, and they're killing the fatted calf, dude. Literally, there's a pig roast happening at his birthday, and all these people show up, and like, you know, Bianca Jagger's there, and there's a really popular designer named Vivienne Westwood, and she's there, and all these barristers, and Brad and Angeli did not show up, neither did Oprah, because they were too worried about his, I don't know, connections, juice that he had, you know what I mean? Just like they were worried about like being aligned with him at that point. People were still kind of like a little scared to align themselves with him or Wiki Leaks at the time. And so I go back, I shoot the birthday party, and George Clooney's future wife, Amal, at that time, Almuden, was there. And she and I, we have a great time, and I'm having a great time with her, and I've got all these pictures of her dancing at this party. And it was actually pretty cool. And so from there, we go from there to the extradition hearings. And from there, you know, documentaries are made and all this kind of crazy stuff. And so if you look at the Risk documentary, you see me walking out in one day with him, which is kind of crazy. And Amal is, if you look up the three of us, there's a picture of us that exists in the news cycle at the time. So here's the three of us coming out of the court. This is the day. This is the day after the Rupert Murdoch scandal.
Is that Secret Service on the left?
That's what he said. Julian said, "Hey, will you wear these shades?" When we walked out, I was like, "Okay, sure." And they ended up coming out looking like a Secret Service guy. But the whole time I was taking photos. And so we walk out of the courtroom because one of his Icelandic correspondents couldn't be there that day because he was taking care of his kids, which is funny because it's like the most basic thing in the whole world. So if you go through the thing, here's, yep, right there. You can see, yep, that's just walking out of the courtroom. Look kind of badass, don't it?
A little Nicolas Cagey.
I used to get that in high school all the time. I was just telling my daughter about that yesterday.
Gone in 60 seconds.
But not as crazy, that's for sure.
And we lost him.
Oh,
there you
we're
are.
back. There we go. So that's us coming out of the courtroom, extradition day during, I think it was day two. And got an amazing shot out of that. It might be in that original Google search, but I won a bunch of awards for that. I'm not sure if it's either there or the website, but you can find it. It's just like a shot. So like what I did was I said, look, right now it's crazy. We're going to walk out of here and it's going to be the craziest amount of people. I said, but I want you to find me. Okay. I want you to find me in the crowd. And so we come out of the courtroom, we walk through the crowd. There's probably, I don't know, between 600 and 1,000 people between all the news agencies and photographers. And somehow he did. I don't know how he did, but he did.
That's nuts, man. That's nuts.
So have you ever had, like, after all this is done, you've done all this stuff, did you ever get any sort of pushback on anything because of your connection or anything like that?
I thought for sure about 2 months after that, I had to go on a cigar trip to Nicaragua. And I thought for sure when I got from this cigar trip and I was coming back through U.S. Customs, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to get back in. I thought for sure. And for some strange reason, I did. And I kept thinking, if they know me, they know that I've got Republicans on the website and all this kind of stuff. And that might have been the only saving grace. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure because I'm not really, I think our jobs as photographers are there just to be neutral, as to be,
right.
You know, like I'm not really involved with the politics. I don't really care about it. And I'm not really passionate enough to like be crazy about it to the point where I'm going to shoot anyone or like, I don't know. The main thing that I care about is getting the photo. That's it. And so I think if anybody's listening, which I'm sure they have been for the last, 5 years, you know, they just probably heard my voice and heard me talking about it and probably did the research and all that kind of stuff and can see that I'm not like, they know I'm neutral in the whole situation, or they would have already picked me off easily because they had their chance at least 3 times, you know, as much as I travel, because that's how you do it. That's how you do it. You come back into the country and they just don't let you back in. Simple as that.
Right.
And so they had their chance. They know where I'm at. So I figured at that point, they know who I am. They know what I've got going on, you know.
Are you worried?
But I did feel that way a little bit. I felt a little paranoid and thought I might be worried a little bit. What were you going to ask?
And how about moving forward right now with what the current stuff you just talked about and stuff like that? Do you think anything of worry to for you or anything?
I don't know. I mean, everybody thinks that, things are going to die down with COVID once the election happens. And I don't know. I'm kind of the ilk of just, I'm going to put this podcast out in a couple of weeks and we're going to have the people on. And I think everybody involved just like did what they did, but I don't think none of us are public enemy number one.
Right.
I mean, they know where I stand. I love America. I love my country. Have I been outside of it? Yes. Have I seen other perspectives about our country? Absolutely. But we all have to be honest about it. I mean, we've never been innocent in just about anything. We've always got some skin in the game somehow, some way. And we try to look out for our best interests as best we can. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, because I've been everywhere, I've seen it. I've seen what other countries do. I still want to be here. I still want to live in this old guts and glory.
Hey, thanks for watching part 1 of our interview with Allen Clark. If you want more information about other episodes, join us on our YouTube page or every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for a brand new episode at talesfromthepit.net. We'll see you next time.
Hey everybody, it's me, Allen Clark with Allen Clark Photography. You just heard an amazing episode of Tales from the Pit with my friends talking about my crazy career build through the years. Just going through and talking about what it took for me to get to where I needed to be, to build my niche, to build my career through that whole process, and some of the crazy shoots that I've been on. They're letting me talk right now to you about a workshop that I've got coming up October 26th, 28th, and 30th. And the workshop is called Building Your Dream Portfolio. It's going to be a 3-part workshop. And I'm going to walk you through the necessary steps to elevate your photography career to the next level. It's going to be incredible. Joining me is going to be my friend Chris Buck, who's an amazing photographer. Go check him out. Check him out, chrisbuck.com. He has an amazing career in shooting celebrities and products and entertainment and all types of stuff. Go check him out. But he's going to talk the second night, just for like maybe 20, 30 minutes. He's going to go through his career and talk about what it took to make him hit his target, his goals and things like that. And, the whole time he's focused on trying to hit the bullseye. We did a podcast a few months back, and that's what we covered a little bit. But this is going to go into it a little bit more, and to help you go through the steps it's going to take as a photographer, find your audience, and to seek new avenues for your work. That's all that we all want. We all are trying to figure out our niche, find our place. Find what it is that makes us great, and then just go for it. And so this workshop is all about those steps and how to help you do that. So there's going to be a link at the bottom. Follow that link, and it will take you to Nabechi Creative, and that is who's hosting this workshop. It's going to be a 3-night Zoom workshop, and it is going to be so informative. I wish I'd had this in my career. I wish I had somebody to tell me, almost exactly how to do this, how to take, these photographs, arrange them, and then figure out like who it is that I need to send this to. Who do I want to work for? How do I market myself? How do I send it to the right people? Because we always have this idea that we have to send it to everybody, and you don't. You have to send it to the right people. And so this workshop is all about that. What are the steps necessary to send things to the right people and to help you focus on those steps? So please join us, and thanks for listening.